Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves all of us to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, one daily masterclass. This masterclass right here that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is how to deal with the police when you're black. Now, this is a topic that I actually came up with. I first thought about this topic many years ago. This had to be probably around 2008 or 2009. I didn't actually come up with the topic out of nowhere. I had actually saw this video of a lawyer. He was like a civil rights attorney. He was in a college classroom. I don't know what school. I don't know who the attorney was. This is, again, over a decade ago. And he was explaining to the students, here's how you deal with a police officer if you happen to get pulled over. Because this just happened to be an interesting topic, I guess, for the students. And it wasn't about race. It wasn't about black or white. This is way before any of this stuff is going on, before any kind of civil unrest or protest or hashtags or any of that. He was just explaining to the kids, here's how you deal with cops. Like, he was saying things like, don't answer the questions and just comply with what the cop is saying. But he was doing it in a very entertaining type of way. I got to see if I can find that video. But anyway, this is something that I think we need to talk about and make sure that I'm putting myself on the record with, especially since these days with any type of interaction between people of color and police, especially white police, carries with it the possibility of something going wrong. Everybody's pulling their cameras out. Everyone's trying to record something that ends up going viral, even if it comes with the expense of something tragic happening to another person. Everybody's filming everything these days, especially with the cops. The cops got a target on their back right now. And I don't mean a target is in somebody trying to hurt them, but a target is in any interaction between a cop and a civilian. Everyone's watching a cop to find the cop doing something wrong. And I think that compounds the complexity of a police officer's job. Now, that is not to say that everything that a cop does is right, and that's not to say that there aren't some bad apple cops out there, of course. But there are also plenty of good cops. I've interacted with many of them. So I'm not here to, and I'm not going to slander the police in general. I'm never going to take one group of people and just attack that entire group, because we know it doesn't work like that. I'm a black male. I know some black males who are complete assholes who most of you don't want to deal with at all in any way, shape, or form, because nothing positive is going to come out of it. But I also know a lot of positive black males that are doing great things. I know people from my neighborhood who are good. I know people who ain't shit. I know people from my family who are good and will help you move forward. And there are people from my family who ain't got nothing going on, and I wouldn't talk to them myself if they wanted some of my time. So we're not going to take an entire group of people and say, well, all of these people who support this, all the people who have this job, all the people from this place, all the people from this religion, we're never going to put a blanket over an entire group of individuals. We always have to be specific about who we're talking about if you're going to be negative about something. Now, if you want to be positive, I don't mind you putting a blanket over somebody. But when it comes to being negative, you got to be clear exactly why you're being negative. Because if you get into negative stereotypes about any groups of people for whatever reason, by their profession, by the way they look, by what God they worship, by who they support politically, by where they're from, by how they dress, then you start to take yourself down a very slippery slope, and most of you motherfuckers can't ski. So you don't want to get on these slippery slopes. So what I'm about to share here today is doesn't necessarily have to be for a black person. This could be for any type of person, but since the topic these days, and I'm sure the topic in future days, years after this episode comes out, is going to be black people and their interaction with police, and many black people. This is another thing I meant to talk about. Many black people's feelings towards police. Now, I know some really smart, rational, logical individuals with whom I've had conversations when it comes to police, saying things that were not logical or rational. And one part of me did not understand it, but another part of me did understand it. As I talked about in the George Floyd episode that I put out in May of 2020, even though logically and rationally we understand, if you look at the statistics, that the chance of an encounter with a police officer, a nonviolent encounter with a police officer ending with anyone getting injured in any way, shape, or form are super low. Human beings are not completely logical. Human beings don't look at statistics for every possibility that happens in our lives. All right. Do you look at statistics every time you eat some food that you didn't make? What's the chances that you could possibly die from it? No. But if you hear on the news that 3 people and on the other side of the country died from eating a certain type of food, you may consciously or unconsciously avoid that food for a year irrationally, even though the chances of you being the next one to die from it or anyone to die from it are super duper low. You may irrationally avoid that food for the next 2 years and maybe for the rest of your life simply because of that small piece of information that you got that got sensationalized and went viral. Is this true or is this not true? Of course it's true. So the same way that would affect you, this is the way that it's affected some black and brown individuals, especially black males, when it comes to police, is that there are only a few cases of these things happening, and most of the time, the person to whom it happened did something that led to the situation happening that way. Again, not to say that that made them guilty, not to say that meant they deserved what happened to them, but they did something. And I'm telling you that to tell you this, that the person, the suspect, who ended up being a victim of some kind of brutality or, God forbid, death at the hands of a police officer, had the option to do certain things or do other things, and they chose an option that led to a response from a police officer, which could eventually lead to them getting injured or getting killed or dying, whatever way you want to word that. I'm saying that to explain that everyone listening to this, you have options whenever you are dealing with a police officer. And what I'm going to talk about here today are what your options are and what choices that you should make when you are a black person, especially a black man, and again, it doesn't have to be for black people, males, females, any color, how to deal with police. So this applies to all people, but since the current conversation has been about blacks and the cops, and it will be, and because I'm black, that's why I put it in the title, and it'll get more people to click on it as well. But people of all backgrounds should follow everything I'm going to say here today. So let's get into it. Point number 1, topic once again, is how to deal with police when you are black. Number 1, you must understand situational power. My favorite book of all time is The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Anyone who's ever read that book, you know what law number 1 is. The very first chapter in the fucking book. What is it? Always respect the master. Now, that's some choice wording, right? And I'm talking about black people dealing with cops. But let me give you the context of that title. I'm not telling you that police officers are your masters, and I'm not trying to make some kind of colloquial referral to slavery. That's not what I'm talking about here. Always respect the master. In 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene goes on to explain in the book that you must always understand in any group that you're a part of, whether that group is 2 people or 20 or 1,000 people, who is in charge, who has the influence, who has the power, what is that person's disposition. Now, how easily triggered is this person? How quick is their temper? How insecure is this person? How on alert, how anxious is this individual? It is your job to get all of these reads on the person who's in charge in any group. And it is also very wise of you. It would be very wise of you to never offend the person who's on top. Because offending the person who's on top will make your life a living hell as long as you're a part of that organization. For example, if you are in a family unit, you live at home with your parents, you know it would probably be very stupid to piss off your mom or your dad if they're the one who controls whether or not you can go outside and play, whether or not you can play on a sports team this year, whether or not you're going to get a car for your birthday, whether or not your curfew is going to get extended to 1 o'clock in the morning instead of 10 o'clock at night, whether or not you get to do what you want to do, go on that class trip, whether or not you get to hang with certain friends, whether or not you get some money to buy some school clothes. If they're the person in charge, they are the quote unquote master in the situation, and it would be wise of you to make sure you appease the people who are in charge. Now, as a child growing up with parents, I think all of us inherently understand that without having it explained to us. What happens, though, is sometimes we forget that these master-underling relationships, they appear throughout life over and over and over again. And every wise individual understands that they are in a position. They're somewhere on the totem pole, any person that you're dealing with at all points in life. All right, you must understand. That's what I mean when I say understand situational power. I'll explain what that means in one moment. And again, Robert Greene's book, 48 Laws of Power, chapter 1, always respect the master. What is situational power? If you're in the ocean swimming and a shark grabs a hold of you, who has situational power? The shark, of course, right? Now, if you're on land and you grab a hold of a shark who happens to be washed up ashore on the sand, who has situational power? You have the power. So situational power does not mean that one person always has power over you at all times. For example, just like I used the parents example, when you're 12 years old, living under the roof of your mother and your father, they have situational power. But when you're 57 years old and your mother and father are old and they can't even move, can't even go to the bathroom on their own, and they're living with you and you're taking care of them, you have situational power. So you see, things can flip around in life, and it might not take 50 years for things to flip around. Things can flip around in 1 minute. The game of power is flexible, it is malleable. Things are always changing. But when you are dealing with a police officer, a uniformed police officer, they have situational power. Does everyone understand what I just said? And I'm going to explain this even deeper. But a cop has situational power almost every time. I remember I was at the local movie theater in my neighborhood. I wasn't even seeing a movie. I was actually eating. They got a restaurant there, and one of the employees was being kind of rude to me. So I approached the employee, and I approached the manager, and I was talking about the employee. And the employee walked up to approach me, and I was verbally letting that employee know that approaching me was not something that he should do. And there were some police officers, about 4 of them, were sitting at a table eating, enjoying themselves when they noticed it, and they came over and intervened in the situation. And the police, as soon as they walked over, they had situational power. And I knew that the police had situational power, and it would be really dumb of me to escalate the situation any further with the police involved. They got involved, and they were very nice guys. These were all white or Latin, maybe white/Latin police officers. Really nice, shook my hand. They were very polite. They handled the situation. They diffused it very quickly, calmed everybody down. Everybody went back to their respective places where they came from. We sat down, finished eating. The workers went back to work. The cops went back to eating. And when they left, they came over by our table and said goodnight to us. And they were very polite, very kind police officers. So I'm never going to put a blanket over police officers and say, well, oh, cops are doing this or cops are doing that. It's bullshit. And I'm sure you have positive exchange. You have had positive exchanges with certain groups of people, and you've had negative exchanges with certain groups. I've dealt with some cops who were fucking assholes, and that would allow me to say something like that if I wasn't a rational, logical, mature thinker. And I'm going to assume that you are as well. So I'm appealing to your maturity and your rationality in every conversation that we have here on the show. And if you happen to have lost it temporarily, I'm going to remind you of it. All right, that's what I do here. Okay? So the point that I'm making here, anytime you're dealing with a cop, whether the cops come to break up a dispute between two people arguing, whether a cop pulls you over in traffic, whether you are walking around in some neighborhood or you're inside of a business and you don't have a mask on, and a cop comes to you and says something to you about not having your mask on, whether you are anything you could be doing where a cop can say something to you. I'm talking about an actual police officer, not some bitch ass security guard at a building or something like that, or a mall cop. I'm talking about an actual cop with a badge on and they got a gun on their hip. Listen, when you see someone who looks like a cop or is acting like a cop, just look at their hip. You see a gun, that's a cop. Okay? You see a gun and or a badge, you're dealing with a police officer. All right, that individual has situational power in every situation. When they got that uniform on, they are situationally empowered everywhere that they go. They are working to serve and protect basically anywhere outside of your house. All right, you must respect that shit. Respect that situational power. This right here, this point right here covers 99% of any possible issue you could have with a police officer. Let me repeat myself for the slow learners who weren't listening. Respecting the situational power of a police officer. Anytime you deal with a cop, the only place you might be able to disrespect a cop and get away with it is within your own house, but then the cop's not going to be in your house. They're not going to come in your house. Okay? So anywhere else that you deal with a cop, actually, let's just say anywhere, all right? Because if you got a cop in your house, they probably got a reason to be in there. Okay? Anytime you deal with a uniformed police officer, 99% of any possible issue that could come up is covered by this first point: respect situational power. As long as you're respectful of their power, even if you end up getting arrested. Let's say a cop arrests you and you believe that the cop is wrong to arrest you. Let's say the cop writes you a ticket and you think you were not speeding, or you did have your seatbelt on. There was some bullshit for them to write you a ticket for a busted tail light because you know they were trying to pull you over to try to get something else, but they realized they ain't have shit else, so they had to come up with a reason to write you a ticket. Right. Even if you think the cop is on some complete bullshit, even if you think the cop's a racist asshole, even if you're mad that the cop has inconvenienced your day, wasted a considerable amount of your time, and you are 100% right, even if you believe all of these things, as long as you respect the police officer's situational power, there will be no complications from that interaction. And that's the point here. You don't want any complications from an interaction with a cop, because the worst case scenario is your face could be on a t-shirt, right? Best case scenario is the cop can just inconvenience your day and just delay you for 15 minutes or an hour while they try to figure out a way to get something on you because you pissed them off, and they know they got the power to do that. All right, so you don't want any complications from a situation with a cop. Just respect their situational power. Respect the fact that they have power in that moment at that time. There will be a time for you to have power. I want y'all to understand something about the police. There are different branches of the government, okay? In different branches of the government, there's a branch of government whose job is to create laws, create and pass laws. That is I forget the name of it, but there's one branch of the government that does that. Like the Senate, the House of Representatives, those people over there, those individuals, they create and pass laws. Then you have a branch of the government whose job it is to enforce the law. We call them the police. They enforce laws. So if they suspect that you have committed a robbery, they're going to arrest you. If they suspect that you're the person who did that murder, you're going to get arrested and you're going to get taken to jail. If they suspect that you ran a red light, you're not going to get arrested for that, usually. They'll write you a ticket because that's a citation, right? The cop's job is to enforce the laws as they are written on the books. That's the only job the police officer has. Now, there's another branch of government called the judicial branch. Their job is to interpret the law. The judicial branch of government is what many of you would know as court. Okay, so if you get a traffic ticket for running a red light and you don't believe you ran a red light, or you think the cop was profiling you, or you didn't have marijuana in your car, but the cop gave you a citation or arrested you and impounded your car for having marijuana in it, don't argue with the cop. Now, the cop is not a judge. The cop is not a lawyer. The cop's only job is to enforce the law as they interpret it subjectively. The cops get to subjectively determine how they enforce the law or how not. Because a cop could watch you speed by them at 80 miles per hour in a 65 zone and not do anything. But then the next car that does it, they're going to pull them over. That is subjective enforcement of the law. Police officers are human beings. They have a right to subjectively enforce. Has any of you ever been pulled over and talked your way out of a ticket? Has any of you ever been doing something that you could have been cited or arrested for, and a cop knew you did it, but you were able to walk away from that situation without being cited or arrested? Maybe some of you never have, but I'm sure everyone here has heard of someone getting away with something like that. Of course you have, because police officers, being subjective humans, have a right to, whenever they want to, enforce or not enforce the law as they see it. So, because they have situational power. Have you enforced every single rule that you ever have every single time you see somebody doing it wrong or doing it right? Of course not. Sometimes you let it go because you have situational power and you're a human, you're subjective, you're not a robot, you're not going to be perfect. And neither are cops. And I don't mean perfect as in they didn't see it. I mean perfect as in they don't want to do it. Sometimes a cop just doesn't want to do extra work. I remember when I was in, what grade was I in? Probably about 7th grade. Right, me and a friend of mine, we were on a train and we wrote on the wall of the train, like with a marker. And somebody saw us and the cops came, and I remember one of the cops, they grabbed us up when we got off the train at the next stop, and one of the cops said to the other cop, hey, do you want to send them to this program or that program? Because we're kids, we're like 12 years old. This program or that program for kids to get caught doing this graffiti stuff. And the cop said to him, I'm standing right next to the cop, when he replied to his fellow cop, he said, nah, that's too much paperwork. That was his response. He said, nah, that's a lot of paperwork. Because he ain't want to do the work. He didn't want to do that extra paperwork. He decided he was going to handle the situation a different way. And maybe I'll tell that story on a different day. But this is what I'm saying. He had subjective power to do what he wanted to do in that particular situation. He was trying to save himself some time. You must respect the situational power that police officers have. You do this, 99% of any possible complications are completely eliminated. And everyone who's listening to this, listen, if you only need to get one thing out of this show, I just gave it to you. If you want the details and for the rest of this, keep listening. Point number 2. Today's topic is how to deal with police when you are black. Number 2, you got to learn how to be political and play the game. All right, this goes hand in hand with point number 1. Always respecting the master, respecting the situational power of the people that you're dealing with. Being political and playing the game. We talked about this in the episode where I talked about hustling. I believe it was episode number 1234. We talked about hustling. Let me make sure I tell you that. That episode was masterclass number 1314. I don't know I got 1234 for it. 1314, hustling. Learning how to play the game. What does that mean, playing the game? It means understanding your spot on the totem pole, understanding your relative power or relative lack of power, and respecting the fact that you have some or that you have none, and adjusting your actions and your words thusly. When you know you have no power, you talk to people differently when you have all the power. Would you agree? Yes, we all do this. When you know that you are situationally weak, you need to position yourself as being situationally weak, respecting the power of the person who is not weak, and therefore the game will work better in your favor than when you try to pretend that you have power when you and the people that you're dealing with know that you don't. All right, they will extract a penalty against you for doing that. They'll extract a penalty against you for fronting or pretending like you have power that you don't actually have. And this is where a lot of mistakes come in with people dealing with police of all colors, all genders, all races. Have you ever been at work and pretended to be nice to a person who you didn't like? Anybody ever did that? Of course you did. What do we call that? We call that being political. That is politics. You were nice to a person that you didn't really like because you knew that pretending to be nice to that person would probably make it easier for you to do your damn job and get your check. True or not true? Of course you did. If you showed your true feelings to every single person at work, how you really felt about them, how long would you still be working there? So you're being political every single day. You're playing the game every single day. So guess what? If you can do it at work, if you can do it with your kids, if you can do it with your parents, you can do it with the cops. It's no different. You might hate cops. You might think cops are out to kill all black people. You can feel whatever the fuck you want to feel. But when you deal with the cop, knowing that they have situational power, you need to be polite, deferential, and cooperative. Let me tell you those 3 words again. Polite, deferential, and cooperative. When you see cops hanging out somewhere, you walk by, wave, say hello to the cop. Get comfortable with the presence of a police officer. Why? Because when you are afraid or anxious, when you have those energies of being afraid of a cop or being anxious around cops, or you have negative energy towards cops, like aggressive negative energy towards a cop, when you have those kind of energies, you don't have access to all of your skills. Fear and anxiety are basically you losing the key to some of the doors that house your skills. So even if you're 100% correct, you think the cop's completely wrong, you're completely right. Remember something. Cops are not the judiciary branch of government. Our only job is to enforce the law as they see it. So if they think that you committed a crime, they arrest you. You go to jail. You call your fucking lawyer because you get a phone call. You call your lawyer. Y'all go to court and you take care of that. That's the way it works, ladies and gentlemen. It takes discipline. It takes it takes patience. Sometimes when you end up in a situation that you shouldn't have been in, you believe you were wrongly accused or wrongly arrested, and many times you're right. How many cases in court get thrown out every single day? How many arrests just get completely removed from people's records all the time? It happens all the time because cops are not perfect. Their job is just to interpret based on what they see. A cop is like a referee in basketball. All right, they might make the wrong call, but you can't just go beat them up because they made the wrong call. All right, they're gonna make a wrong call in your favor one day too. Same way you got pulled over for speeding that one time. How many other times did you speed that you didn't get pulled over? Exactly. So look at the cop like you're looking at a basketball referee. They're going to make some bad calls, but generally speaking, they're trying to do the right thing. Now, are there some asshole refs just like there's some asshole cops? Yes, there are. But are you going to be mad at all the refs because of that? No, that would be dumb, wouldn't it? Even when you're 100% right in a situation, a cop, just like a referee, just like your parents, just like one of your coworkers, they can still add a whole lot of inconvenience to your day, even though they're wrong and you're right. Can you agree to this? I'll tell you a story once. I was coming from a recreational basketball game, probably around 2009-ish. And I was on a road that was only one lane going one way, one lane going the other way. And there were two cops. You know how cops pull up driver's side to driver's side? So one cop is pointing one direction, the other going the other direction. They pull up so that their driver's side windows are right next to each other and they're talking and shit. So these two cops are talking and they're stopped like right in the middle of the fucking road. They're blocking the road. Now me, being young and stupid, I beat my horn at the cop. And he absolutely did not like me beeping my horn at him. And when they saw that I was beeping at them, he slowly pulled up so I could, move forward. But then he pulled me over and he didn't have nothing on me. He just asked me why I had beat my horn at him, and I said, yo, y'all was blocking the road. He's like, well, we're conducting police business. They didn't really, he knew he was wrong for blocking the road. I knew I was 100% right for calling him out for blocking the road. They were literally blocking a 2-lane road, and they detained me. I sat there in the car while these dudes actually pulled out like a booklet. I think these guys were younger cops. I don't know. I think they were younger cops. So they pulled out a fucking book. It was like this big encyclopedia-like book, and they're looking through it, like trying to look for something to cite me for. They wrote me a ticket for something. I don't even remember what it was. I wasn't speeding. The car wasn't even fucking moving. I had my seatbelt on. They didn't have anything on me. All my paperwork was right. They wrote me a ticket for something. I don't remember what it was. We got it dismissed. But the whole point was they detained me for like 30, 40 minutes simply because I had pissed one of them off by trying to prove that I was right. Because I didn't understand respecting situational power. Even though I had read 48 Laws of Power at that time, maybe I hadn't read it often enough because the law had not seeped into my head at that time. Just because I was being rude. I was 100% right. But again, if you don't respect situational power, a person can be wrong, but if they got more power than you, they can fuck your day up just because they feel like it. And if you don't respect that, then you're going to end up having that happen to you over and over and over again. Point number 3. Today's topic is how to deal with police as a black person. You got 3 options for dealing with wolves, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, wolves, like the wolf that has long teeth and they hunt in packs and they kill animals to eat. When you're dealing with a wolf, there are 3 things you can do. Option A, you can attack the wolf. Option B, the wolf can attack you. And option C, you can get the wolf on your side. Those are the 3 choices you got when you come across a wolf. All right. Now, maybe the wolf will decide not to mess with you. The wolf might run away and not deal with you. Wolves, generally speaking, wolves are wary of human beings. But if a wolf is hungry or has its young with it, or you're in between the wolf and its young, now you only got those 3 options. Attack it attacks you, or get it on your side. You should look at a cop like you will look at a wolf. If you walked outside your door right now and you saw a wolf standing right there in front of you, you got 3 choices. What you gonna do? You gonna attack the wolf? You gonna let the wolf attack you, or you gonna get the wolf on your team? All right, look at the cop like that. Next time you deal with a police officer, you could attack the cop. Probably won't end too well. You can let the cop attack you. That probably won't end well either. Or you can get the cop on your side. Now, the only reason the cop would attack, the cop's not going to just attack you randomly for no reason. Now, you can get the cop on your side by respecting their power and influence in the situation, choosing to not allow the police to be in position of opposition to you because it's costly and it's anxiety inducing doing that. Instead, get them on your team. Meaning, while your energy in life should never be controlled by other people's approach to you, their energy is always controlled by your approach to them. You get it? You never let how another person approaches you to determine how you act. But if you want to control how other people act, all you have to do is alter your approach to them. So this is something like I talked about earlier, not earlier, but many master classes ago. If you're a salesperson, you want to sell people on the outcome, but you teach them the process. Nobody wants to buy a process. People want to buy outcomes. For example, if you're a personal trainer, you don't sell people on 20 sessions and we're going to work out for an hour each time and you're going to be sweating through your clothes and you're going to barely be able to walk to your car when it's over. That's what you're going to give them. But what you sell them is you're going to lose 25 pounds in 6 weeks and you're going to look as beautiful as you did in high school and your husband's going to look at you different and you're going to feel sexy like you used to back in high school. That's what you sell. Now, in order for them to get that, they got to do all that process stuff. You sell the outcome, you teach the process. And it's the same thing when dealing with other people. You don't allow other people's energy to control your energy, but your energy controls theirs. All right, I said that 3 times. You should get it by now. So when you get pulled over, turn the lights on inside your car. Put your hands on the steering wheel. When the officer approaches your vehicle, say to the officer, "Hello, officer. How can I help you? How can I make things easy for you here? What's the best way that we can both go home to our families at the end of this interaction?" These are the kind of things you say to a police officer when they approach. Say it with a smile on your face. Say it like you mean it. Say it with some sincerity. Say it letting them know that you respect their situational power. There are some cops out there who just want to be respected. There are some asshole cops out there who became cops just so they could have some situational power all day, every day. That's why they became a cop. Is that most cops? No. Are there some that fit that description? Yes. And you may recognize it in them. You may read it off them immediately as soon as they walk up to you. Respect their situational power. You can talk shit about them on your podcast after it's over. But do not get yourself in an entanglement trying to prove yourself right with the cop. Again, they're not the judiciary system of government. All they do is enforce. So you can't argue your case with a cop. Whatever they're going to do, they're going to do. Once they decide they're doing it, let it happen, call your lawyer. And if they were really wrong, you can take them to court. You can make more money taking them to court than you would make arguing with them on the corner. Agreed? Remember, their job is not to interpret the law, they just enforce it, so don't argue with a cop. If a cop wrongfully identifies you as a suspect, take a deep breath. Remember your daily meditation practice, because you're doing that, right? I did a whole master class on meditation. Let me tell you which one it is, just so no one can claim ignorance here. Master class number 1476, why you need a meditation practice in your life. So remember your daily meditation practice, because you're doing that, right? Go to the precinct where they arrest you and take you there. Call your lawyer when they give you the phone and get it handled. That's it. Now, is that an inconvenience? Yes. Could it cost you a couple $? Yes. But at least you got a story out of it. And now you can be an example, like we talked about yesterday. You can be an example to the next wave of people who may deal with that exact same thing. And that's all you got to do. If the cops are really wrong, sue them and you make a whole lot of money. If you're frequenting a place, you find yourself frequenting somewhere where police always seem to show up looking for suspects, you should be smart. Be smart and stop being in that place. Do your homework and stop showing up in places where police activity keeps happening. This is all part of the game. All right, being smart is part of the hustle. You realize that some bad things keep happening in a certain location. Why would you show up to that location? You notice certain people always seem to attract police activity and you don't want to deal with police activity. Why are you still hanging with those people? All right, these are errors in judgment, ladies and gentlemen. We talked about judgment in masterclass on discernment, masterclass number 1431. Your skill of perception and judgment. Perceive the situational power that a cop has. Judge a place, location, date, time, energy that is attracting police attention, which means you probably shouldn't be around there anymore. These are all things that you need to discern. I've discerned them for you and laid them out for you in detail. All you gotta do is follow what the hell I'm telling you. This is all part of the game and all part of the hustle. So if you're black and you're wary of dealing with police, I just told you exactly how it's done and exactly why. Let's recap today's class. How to deal with police when you're black. What I'm sharing with you does apply to all people, but for SEO purposes, we're calling it how to deal with cops when you're black. Number one, understand situational power. If you're in the ocean and the shark grabs you, the shark has power, and you're on land and you grab a shark, you had a power. In a traffic stop, a domestic dispute, when working to serve and protect, basically anywhere outside of your house, a police officer has situational power. Respect that shit. This covers 99% of any possible issue you could ever have with a cop. Point number two, be political and play the game. What I mean is, if you're ever at work and pretending to be nice to somebody who you didn't like because you know it will help you do your job, of course you have. Do the same thing with cops. It'll help you do your job of staying alive and living your life free if you just pretend to be nice to them, even if you hate them, okay? When you see cops hanging somewhere, say hello to the cops. Say hi, wave, smile. Get used to being around a police officer. Get comfortable in the presence of a cop, not because you're going to be around them all the time, but because when you are fearful and anxious, you do not have access to all your skills, you will make idiotic decisions. You will make dumb decisions that could lead to bad outcomes. Even when you're 100% right, a cop can add inconvenience to your day, even though the cop was wrong. Remember that the cop's job is not to interpret the law, it is to enforce it. And if they're wrong in their enforcement, the interpretation side, the judiciary side of the law will exonerate you. You need to be calm enough to allow that process to play out. Point number 3, you got 3 options for dealing with a wolf. You can attack it can attack you, or you can get the wolf on your side. See the cop as that wolf. They have power and influence in basically every situation in which you come across them. It's not a good idea to have them opposing you because you probably are not going to win. There are some cases of people winning. They are the exceptions. They are not the rules. Get them on your team. Do not allow your energy to be controlled by other people's approach, but their energy will be controlled by your approach. So when you get pulled over, hello, officer, how can I help you? How can I make things easy for you here? Never argue with a cop because you're not going to win the argument. All they do is enforce the law. If they have pinned you as a suspect, fingered you as a suspect, take a deep breath. Remember the daily meditation that you do. Go to the precinct, make your phone call, get your lawyer on the line, bail yourself out of jail, and handle it in the courtroom. That's the way you handle it. If they're really wrong, you can sue them, and you can make money because of your calmness and meditation. If you're dead, you can't make any money off anything. So be smart. Don't be in places where police activity is happening if you don't want to deal with police. This is part of the game. This is part of the hustle. You got to be smart. This is how you deal with cops when you're black. Work on your game. Dre all day.